America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Our country is a great place, full of opportunities unheard of any place else. Yet the youth of our nation are constantly surrounded by negative images and ideas about our country. Why is this? Why is it that the youth of our nation are now afraid to be American? To help us understand this predicament, we'll go straight to the source, the American teenager.
Here we have Alyssa. Like most teenagers her age, is confused. But not about boys or fashion. No, Alyssa is confused about her identity as an American. You see, Alyssa has been told by her society that she should be ashamed of being an American while still wanting the rights her country gives her. She's constantly bombarded by images from her media of the horrible things they say America does in other places. People in her generation tell her to fight for her, quote, God-given rights. These two messages just don't mesh. Let's see what Alyssa has to say for herself.
I'm so confused right now. My friend just came up to me asking me to sign a petition against capitalism and our government. It said the American government has been oppressing our people. With the way things are going right now, I'm inclined to sign the petition.
But Alyssa, what about the rights you have in this country? Aren't those worth loving your country? Aren't they worth fighting for?
What do you mean, my rights? The government doesn't give me those. God gave them to all human beings.
But while this may be true, Alyssa, that doesn't stop others from trying to keep them from you and from me.
How do you mean?
Well, think back to the Revolutionary War. The whole reason our country came about was because of the abuse Great Britain was putting us through prior to our revolution. All the brave young men on our side died because they believed the government should protect the people's interests, not the interests of the government itself.
Okay, so a bunch of old men died to form our country. What about what the new government did to oppress the people here?
Well, after the revolution was won, our founding fathers sat down for 4 months to draft a plan for our new country. This plan would be unlike any other country's constitution. This new plan would not limit the people under the government, but limit the government itself. This was our new constitution. Now, if that didn't protect our rights, I don't know what would.
But what about all the slaves that our founding fathers owned? And what about the fact that one of the clauses in the Constitution actually protected the institution of slavery in the U.S.? Doesn't that seem just a little hypocritical?
You've just hit on a very sore nerve in the history of America, Alyssa. While it is true that our founding fathers maybe should have fought harder to get freedom for slaves, you must understand the context. They had been talking for nearly 4 months on end. It was hot. Everyone's tempers were short. And if the free states had made any more of a fuss over slavery, the slave states would have left the table. It was either force the issue and potentially get rid of any plan they already had, or compromise and form a great country with rights for most. Imperfect, but it worked temporarily.
Okay, I think I get it.
And don't forget, as soon as Congress was allowed by the Constitution, they outlawed slavery in any new states that joined the Union. And when the slave states tried to secede, we entered a bloody war in which many Americans' lives were ended. And that war eventually ended in the freeing of all the slaves in the U.S.
Yeah, well, what about all the racism and hatred that still existed against the African Americans? What about the KKK?
The problem with living in a country where everyone has the right to express their opinions is that sometimes those opinions will be against others, and often are fueled by hatred. But hatred exists everywhere, and you have to understand that African Americans had tons of support from our government, at least as much as it could give them. But African Americans did eventually win their rights too, with help from people like LBJ. In any other country, African Americans would not have been able to overcome their oppression, but in America, they had the opportunity, and many people backed them and their cause up.
Oh, I see. We have to wait for the ideas of everyone to catch up with the plans of our founding fathers, and to do this, we sometimes have to compromise.
Exactly. And don't forget, Alyssa, no country is perfect.
What about the fact that we keep sticking our nose into foreign countries' affairs? It isn't our job to be police and judges for what's right and what's wrong in the world.
Alyssa, the mindset you have right now is one of, quote, isolationism. Isolationism is the doctrine that a nation should stay out of the disputes and affairs of other nations. We had this philosophy as a country right before World War II, and guess what we completely ignored by doing this? That's right, the Holocaust.
Okay, I get that. But why did we have to get involved in Vietnam and Iraq? It's not like anything like the Holocaust was happening there.
Oh, Alyssa, how wrong you are. South Vietnam was under threat of being taken over by North Vietnamese communists. Now, we in America knew that the reputation that communism had for squashing the rights of others. As someone used to disagree with Stalin and Soviet Russia, he sent them off to the camps to be killed. Lenin said that if he had to, he would kill 2/3 of the world just so long as the last third was communist. Therefore, we felt it was our responsibility to go in there, to protect the rights of those in South Vietnam who did not want to be communists.
So, what about Iraq and Afghanistan?
Well, after 9/11, we had interests to protect. The terrorists had made it clear that they were intent on destroying everything we hold dear, every basic human right we had fought to protect. We had intelligence that both Afghanistan and Iraq were aiding terrorists. And when we got to the countries themselves, we saw how atrociously the governments were treating their people and freed them.
What kind of things did their government do to them?
The Taliban in Afghanistan oppressed the rights of many people to choose their own religion. Anyone who didn't follow their skewed version of Islam was tortured, put into prison, or killed. Women were forced to cover their whole bodies and they had no rights. In Iraq, Hussein acted pretty much like Stalin did in Russia. He tortured and killed any political enemies and acted like a huge dictator.
Okay, so America protects its own interests in other countries when it's necessary to do so. But I still don't see how the world is any better because America exists.
Alyssa, imagine a world where the government has no limitations. They control every aspect of our everyday lives. People are forced to be held back if they are able to succeed.
Oh, I think I remember reading a story like that. I think it was called Harrison Bergeron.
Exactly. In Vonnegut's story, he portrays this kind of world. Harrison is forced to be subpar, even though he could succeed wonderfully and help others without the government's interference. Now, how does that seem to you?
Wow, that seems kind of unfair. I wouldn't want to live in a world like that. It would be so boring and colorless.
Now, do you see the importance of America to the world?
Yeah, it sure makes me proud to be an American. I don't think I'm going to sign that petition after all. In fact, I think I'm going to tell my friends about what I learned today.
You go ahead and do that, Alyssa. And I think our viewers should know that they too can be proud to be an American.
Gee, thanks, Professor. That was swell.
No problem. Goodbye.